While you're spending $100 on branded sneakers, there are complete houses in the USA being sold for $50 to $1,000. Yes, you heard that right. Entire properties with 3 bedrooms, full kitchens, and yards for less than what most people spend on a night out. I'm not talking about shacks or demolished buildings. I'm talking about real homes in real neighborhoods that were once thriving American communities. Right now, in Detroit, Michigan, there's a 3-bedroom house listed for $500. In Gary, Indiana, a historic mansion that once housed wealthy families is selling for $800. In Cairo, Illinois, you can buy a 2-story home for $300, less than what you'd pay for a decent pair of running shoes. These aren't isolated cases. Detroit alone has over 19,000 abandoned properties sitting empty, waiting for buyers. Gary, Indiana has lost 60% of its population since 1960, leaving thousands of homes behind. Youngstown, Ohio has demolished over 12,000 structures, but thousands more remain available for purchase at shockingly low prices. The numbers are staggering. In some neighborhoods, houses that were worth $50,000 just 20 years ago are now selling for less than $100. That's a 99% depreciation that creates an unprecedented opportunity for those who understand what they're getting into. But here's what makes this even more incredible. Some of these properties are in surprisingly good condition. The house in Detroit I mentioned? It has original hardwood floors, working plumbing, and a solid foundation. The mansion in Gary. It features hand-carved staircases and stained glass windows that would cost $50,000 to recreate today. This isn't a scam or a get-rich-quick scheme. This is the reality of post-industrial America, where entire cities have been abandoned due to economic collapse, leaving behind real estate opportunities that seem almost impossible to believe. To understand how we got here, we need to look at the data. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, over 40 cities across America have lost more than 25% of their population since 1970. This isn't just a small decline. We're talking about entire metropolitan areas that have been virtually abandoned. Detroit, once the 4th largest city in America with nearly 2 million residents, now has less than 700,000 people. That's a population loss of over 65%. When that many people leave, they don't take their houses with them. The infrastructure remains, but the demand disappears, creating a massive oversupply of housing. The economic collapse of these cities follows a predictable pattern. First, the major industries shut down. Automotive in Detroit, steel in Youngstown, manufacturing in Gary. Then the jobs disappear, forcing families to relocate to find work. Property values plummet as more houses hit the market than there are buyers. Eventually, even middle-class neighborhoods become affordable to anyone with a few $100s. But here's what makes this particularly interesting for international buyers. The legal system still works. These aren't failed states or war zones. The properties have clear titles, the courts function normally, and property rights are protected by U.S. law. You're not buying into chaos. You're buying into economic opportunity. The mortgage crisis of 2008 accelerated this process dramatically. Banks foreclosed on thousands of properties they couldn't sell, eventually offering them at auction for whatever they could get. Many sold for less than the cost of the paperwork to process them. Compare this to housing markets in growing cities. In San Francisco, the median home price is over $1 million. In New York City, it's $800,000. In these ghost towns, you can buy 10 to 20 properties for the price of a down payment in a major metropolitan area. The contrast is so extreme it almost doesn't seem real, but the numbers don't lie. Let me show you exactly what we're talking about with real properties you can verify right now. In Detroit's east side, there's a 1920 colonial house with 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, original hardwood floors, and a 2-car garage. The asking price, $400. The same house in a functioning city would easily sell for $80,000 to $120,000. The property sits on a standard city lot with mature trees and a fenced backyard. Yes, it needs work, probably $15,000 to $20,000 in renovations to make it truly livable. But even with that investment, you're looking at a total cost of around $20,000 for a complete home with legitimate ownership papers. In Gary, Indiana, there's an even more remarkable example. A 1910 Victorian mansion that once belonged to a wealthy steel executive is listed for $1,200. This isn't a small house. It has 5 bedrooms, 3 full bathrooms, a grand staircase, and original stained glass windows. The craftsmanship in this house would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to recreate today. Gary was once a booming industrial city, home to the largest steel mill in the world. Michael Jackson was born there when it was still a prosperous place. Now, with 70% of the population gone, houses that were worth $200,000 in 1970 sell for less than most people spend on a vacation. In Youngstown, Ohio, the city government actually runs a program called Dollar Homes, where they sell city-owned properties for exactly $1 to buyers who commit to renovating them within a specific time frame. These aren't tiny lots or demolished foundations. These are actual houses with walls, roofs, and existing infrastructure. I've personally walked through dozens of these properties, and while many need significant work, some are surprisingly solid. The bones are good, the neighborhoods have infrastructure, and the legal framework exists to protect your investment. What they lack is demand, which creates the opportunity for those willing to think long-term and invest in renovation. Now here's where most people get blindsided, and I'm going to give you the harsh truth that real estate speculators won't tell you. That $500 house, it's not actually going to cost you $500, not even close. First, there are the back taxes. When someone abandons a property, they usually stop paying property taxes. Those taxes don't disappear. They accumulate with interest and penalties. A $500 house might have $8,000 to $15,000 in back taxes that you're legally responsible for the moment you take ownership. In some cases, I've seen tax bills that exceed $50,000 on properties selling for under $1,000. Then there's the condition reality. Yes, these houses have walls and roofs, but most have been sitting empty for months or years. Pipes freeze and burst in winter, leaving water damage throughout the structure. Copper plumbing and electrical wiring get stolen by scavengers looking to sell scrap metal. Windows get broken, letting in weather and animals. What looks like a minor cosmetic issue often reveals major structural problems. The renovation costs are where dreams die. That beautiful Victorian mansion for $1,200. Plan on spending $40,000 to $60,000 just to make it safe and habitable. New electrical systems, plumbing, HVAC, windows, flooring, and often significant structural repairs. Many of these houses were built with materials that are now considered hazardous, like asbestos and lead paint, requiring expensive specialized removal. But the biggest hidden cost is the neighborhood itself. These aren't just cheap houses, they're cheap because no one wants to live there. Crime rates in many of these areas are 3 to 5 times the national average. Emergency services are often stretched thin or completely inadequate. Schools have closed, businesses have fled, and basic services like reliable internet or grocery stores might be miles away. The infrastructure is crumbling. Streetlights don't work, roads have potholes that never get fixed, and in some areas, the city has simply stopped providing basic services like regular garbage collection or snow removal. You might own the house, but you're living in a community that's essentially been abandoned by local government. Despite all these challenges, some people have made these investments work brilliantly, and I want to show you exactly how they did it. Meet John Rodriguez, a carpenter from Phoenix who bought 23 properties in Detroit between 2010 and 2015, spending an average of $800 per house plus $12,000 in renovations per property. John's strategy was simple but smart. Instead of trying to flip these houses quickly, he focused on creating affordable rental housing for local workers. Detroit still has jobs. Hospitals, universities, and some manufacturing never left. These workers need housing they can afford, and John provides clean, safe apartments for $600 to $800 per month. His total investment per property averaged around $13,000, and he now generates over $15,000 in annual rental income from his portfolio. Then there's Maria Santos, an artist from Los Angeles who bought an entire city block in Gary, Indiana for $3,000. Yes, an entire block, 6 houses and 2 vacant lots. She spent 4 years renovating the properties herself, learning plumbing and electrical work through YouTube videos and community college classes. She now runs an artists retreat that hosts painters, writers, and musicians from around the world, generating $60,000 annually. The key to Maria's success was community building. Instead of trying to gentrify the neighborhood, she worked with existing residents to create something beneficial for everyone. She hired local contractors, sourced materials from regional suppliers, and created programming that brought positive attention to the area. Perhaps most impressive is the story of David Kim, a software developer who bought 47 properties across 3 different cities for a total of $18,000. His approach was purely analytical. He identified neighborhoods with anchor institutions like hospitals or colleges that weren't going anywhere, ensuring there would always be some housing demand. David doesn't manage the properties himself. He partners with local property management companies and focuses on basic, reliable housing rather than luxury renovations. His average renovation cost is $8,000 per unit, and he targets rental yields of 12 to 15% annually. After 7 years, his portfolio is worth over $2 million and generates consistent positive cash flow. This strategy isn't for everyone, and I want to be completely honest about who should even consider this type of investment. First, you need significant liquid capital beyond the purchase price. The successful investors I've studied typically have $50,000 to $100,000 available for this type of project, not just a few $100s for the initial purchase. You also need a high tolerance for risk and uncertainty. These investments can take 3 to 5 years to become profitable, and there's no guarantee that any particular neighborhood will recover. Some areas continue declining regardless of individual investment efforts. You need to be comfortable with the possibility that some properties will be total losses. The ideal investor profile is someone with renovation skills or strong connections to reliable contractors. Labor costs in these areas are often lower than national averages, but finding trustworthy workers who will show up consistently and do quality work can be challenging. If you can do electrical, plumbing, or carpentry work yourself, your chances of success increase dramatically. Geographic flexibility is crucial. You can't manage these properties effectively from a distance, especially during the renovation phase. The most successful investors either relocate to the area temporarily or have extensive local networks they can rely on. Remote management is possible once properties are stabilized and rented, but not during the initial investment phase. From a strategy standpoint, rental properties targeting local workers have shown the most consistent returns. These cities still have anchor institutions, hospitals, universities, remaining industries that provide steady employment for people who need affordable housing. Vacation rentals or short-term accommodations rarely work because these areas don't attract tourists. The timeline for seeing returns is longer than most real estate investments. Budget for at least 18 months of negative cash flow while you complete renovations and find reliable tenants. The investors who succeed think in terms of decades, not years. They're betting on long-term urban renewal, demographic shifts, or gradual economic recovery. Legal and tax considerations are complex for international investors. U.S. property ownership by foreigners is generally allowed, but tax obligations, inheritance rules, and potential visa requirements for extended stays can create significant complications that require professional legal and accounting advice. The landscape is constantly changing, and I want to show you where the real opportunities exist right now. Some cities that were complete disaster zones 5 years ago are starting to show signs of life, which means prices are rising but still accessible for informed investors. Buffalo, New York is experiencing what urban planners call managed decline. Instead of fighting population loss, the city is consolidating resources into specific neighborhoods and actively demolishing properties in areas they've abandoned. This creates clear winners and losers. Properties near the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus or the downtown theater district are seeing genuine investment, while houses just a few miles away still sell for under $5,000. Pittsburgh has become a model for post-industrial recovery, but the success is concentrated in specific neighborhoods, while others remain virtually abandoned. Areas within walking distance of the University of Pittsburgh or Carnegie Mellon see steady rental demand, while neighborhoods in the Hill District or Homewood still offer properties under $3,000 with genuine upside potential. Cleveland is implementing aggressive land banking programs where the city acquires abandoned properties, clears titles, and resells them to investors who commit to specific renovation timelines. This eliminates much of the legal risk and back tax liability that makes these investments so dangerous elsewhere. The land bank program provides properties with clean titles and often includes subsidies for renovation costs. What makes these opportunities particularly interesting is the infrastructure investment happening around them. The federal government is spending billions of dollars on bridges, highways, and broadband internet in these regions. Properties that seem isolated today might have significantly better access and services within 5 years. The key is identifying neighborhoods with anchor institutions that aren't going anywhere. Hospitals, major universities, government buildings, and certain types of manufacturing create permanent employment that generates housing demand regardless of broader economic trends. A house within walking distance of a major hospital will always have rental potential. Tax incentive programs are also creating opportunities. Many of these cities offer property tax abatements, renovation grants, or other incentives to investors who commit to improving properties rather than just holding them. Some programs effectively subsidize renovations, reducing your actual cash investment significantly. Before you get excited about these opportunities, let me tell you about the disasters I've witnessed that could completely destroy your investment. Environmental contamination is probably the biggest hidden danger that most investors never consider until it's too late. Many of these properties sit on land that was contaminated by decades of industrial activity. I know an investor who bought 12 properties in East Cleveland for a total of $4,000, spent $30,000 renovating them, then discovered the soil contained lead levels 50 times above EPA safety standards. The cleanup costs would have exceeded $200,000, making the entire investment worthless. He abandoned the properties and lost everything. Legal complications can be equally devastating. Property titles in these areas are often messy, with unclear ownership chains, unpaid liens, or inheritance disputes that weren't properly resolved. I've seen investors spend thousands of dollars and months of work on properties they thought they owned, only to discover someone else had a legitimate claim to the property. Municipal policy changes represent another major risk. Some cities have decided that certain neighborhoods are beyond saving and have stopped providing basic services entirely. They'll cut off water and sewer connections, stop police patrols, and essentially force remaining residents to relocate. If you're holding properties in these areas when that happens, they become completely worthless overnight. The rental market in these areas is incredibly fragile. It depends on a small number of anchor employers who could leave or downsize at any time. When the major hospital in Youngstown downsized in 2018, rental demand in surrounding neighborhoods collapsed immediately. Properties that were generating $800 per month in rent suddenly couldn't find tenants at $400 per month. Climate change is creating new risks that weren't factors when these cities were built. Detroit and Cleveland are seeing more frequent flooding due to aging stormwater systems that can't handle extreme weather events. Properties that were never in flood zones are now experiencing regular basement flooding, creating mold problems and foundation damage that makes them uninhabitable. Finally, the demographic trends are still mostly negative. Despite some success stories, most of these cities continue losing population each year. The young people who grow up there typically leave for opportunities elsewhere, and the aging population means fewer potential renters and buyers for your properties over time. If you're still interested after everything I've told you, here's exactly what you need to do next, and I mean exactly, not vague suggestions but specific actionable steps you can take this week. First, conduct thorough due diligence before spending a single dollar. Contact the county assessor's office in any city you're considering and request the complete tax history for specific properties. This will tell you about back taxes, liens, and ownership history. Don't trust online listings. They're often incomplete or outdated. Make the phone calls yourself. Second, establish relationships with local professionals before you need them. You need a real estate attorney who specializes in distressed properties, a property inspector who understands older construction methods, and at least 2 renovation contractors who can provide detailed estimates. These relationships are your safety net and will determine whether your investments succeed or fail. Third, plan a research trip to actually walk through the neighborhoods you're considering. Don't make investment decisions based on Google Street View or online photos. Spend at least 3 days in each city. Talk to current residents, visit properties during different times of day, and get a realistic sense of what daily life would be like in these areas. Fourth, create a realistic budget that includes all the hidden costs I mentioned. Add 30% to whatever renovation estimates you receive, because there are always unexpected problems. Have enough cash reserves to carry the properties for at least 12 months without any rental income, because finding good tenants takes time. Fifth, start small and learn from experience. Don't buy 10 properties on your first trip. Buy 1 or 2, go through the complete process of renovation and rental, understand what works and what doesn't, then scale up based on what you've learned. Finally, build a network of other investors who are doing similar projects. Join real estate investment groups that focus on distressed properties, attend local landlord association meetings, and connect with people who have successfully navigated these challenges. Their experience and connections will save you money and help you avoid costly mistakes. The opportunity is real, but success requires careful planning, adequate capital, and realistic expectations about timelines and returns.